This is the 77 WABC minicast.
So, as I mentioned in the opening, Iran's so-called opening of the Strait of Hormuz lasted about a day, and now they're firing on ships, and it just goes to show you can't believe anything they say. And we welcome back to our show the great General Jack Keane, retired four-star and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, and Fox News senior strategic analyst, also a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. I was in the room when he got it. You know, General Keane, it's exactly what you told us last night. You cannot believe the Iranian government. You cannot believe the Iranian government. And while some things seem to be going in the right direction, we're not there yet, are we, sir? We're not there yet.
No, and what it's demonstrating, Larry, is how fractured the Iranian leadership really is. You know, because we have people on the political side saying one thing, that the straits are open, and then we have the people on the IRGC side who are saying, no, they're not. And the IRGC obviously won that discussion because it's the IRGC, the guys with the guns, that fired on three tankers at a minimum, is what people in Central Command are telling me. So, yes, the people with the guns inside Iran, not too surprising, Larry, are always going to have more influence, particularly as a result of the Ayatollah's death. It's pretty obvious that the new leader doesn't have anywhere near the strength and certainly power that his father had. And so that has given rise to others, political leaders, IRGC leaders, to impose their will. And at the end of the day, for the second time, I'm saying it, the guy with the gun seems to be winning out.
And you have mentioned a number of times on this radio and on the TV the names of people. They may be down the list, but they're rough. They're rough hombres. I mean, there's too much celebration about regime change. There's no regime change. The personalities may change, but they keep coming up with worse and worse apples. We have to be aware of that. I mean, we must be aware of that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think we're struggling in our intel agencies to get a handle on what is happening inside of Iran, because it's just, so dynamic. We're dealing with new players for sure, but still, so our audience understands, the faces have changed, the names have changed, but the ideology, the commitment to what Iran has stood for 47 years, they are as hardline as anybody that has gone before them. And anybody that suggests that they're not is just not looking at really what is happening and what their behavior is going forward. And the political guys that are doing the talking, as we've said before, to our negotiators, they say exactly what our negotiators want to hear. Oh, yeah, you can come in and take our nuclear enriched uranium. Yeah, sure. We're willing to draw down our ballistic missiles. We're willing to stop funding the proxies. That's all talk. And even if there's a verbal agreement, we still don't have anything in terms of actual action. And even if they sign a document, I'm still skeptical about their execution. Why? Because they haven't changed. They lie and they cheat. Where they're coming from, survival number one, and recover and rebuild number two. That is what their objective. The means to do that is comply as much as possible and concede issues to the Americans in negotiations, drag out the ceasefire as long as possible so we can recover our ballistic missiles and the rest of it, and put pressure on the president by dragging it out as it gets closer to the midterm election, and also oil prices don't go maybe to the level we want them to go, so that he'll agree with our concession, and that would be give us some unfrozen assets in the billions and remove sanctions. That is really what they're trying to achieve in terms of recovery. And right now we're saying no to that. You can imagine, our partner in all of this, I think, is really the Iranian people. And sometimes we lose sight of it. And I think we should not lose sight of it. Can you imagine how demoralized they are when they hear that we're negotiating a deal with them that may lead to their recovery and throw them a lifeline, which means they have to deal with these people at some level of strength for years to come? I think we got to really keep our foot on the pedal here and make certain this regime, whatever deal we make, and if we're making a deal versus returning to combat operations, that the objective is to weaken the regime as much as possible so they're vulnerable to the Iranian population at some point.
Well, sir, even in yesterday's, I'll call it, high tide of optimism, there was a lot of euphoria yesterday, probably too much euphoria, but President Trump said time and again that the economic and financial oil and money blockade will not be removed, and that loose talk about giving them $20 billion in cash from various bank accounts offshore that will not be permitted. I mean, the blockade is so essential here, and I think the president got ahead of himself on the negotiations, but nonetheless, we're not going to give up, and the idea of bankrupting them and starving them out of power is still out there. That's got to be the key point right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And in the near term, obviously the Iranians are challenging the Straits of Hormuz and our desire to open it up by what they're doing. We're going to have to direct Cooper, the CENTCOM commander, one, maintain the blockade, two, open up the Straits of Hormuz, start with demining completely, and then also securing it and escorting ships through it. If the Iranians attack us in doing that, as they just attacked tankers, then we'll return to combat operations full throttle. I think that's the path we should be on as a result of this. And I don't know how we continue to pursue a deal, Larry, given what they've just done over the Straits of Hormuz. And I'm sure the people that we're negotiating with are doing everything they can within their own power structure to try to get control over the IRGC and what they're doing. But that may be pretty tough for the reasons we've already stated. It looks like they're really in control. And we said that well over a week ago, that the IRGC has more leverage than anybody inside that government, it appears.
Sir, I wondered yesterday, too, because when they made this announcement about opening the Strait of Hormuz, they were tying it to the Israeli-Lebanon ceasefire. I mean, it wasn't like a full square, four square, announcement that they're, going to change their whole policy. It just seemed kind of phony to me. You touched on it last night on the TV show. And then, of course, what happens this morning? I didn't understand it. We're not close to an agreement. We can't negotiate here. I mean, they have to. Nobody can believe a word of it. They're not crying uncle just yet. Maybe a little bit, but they're not really crying uncle. Let's starve them out. Let's starve the Revolutionary Guard out. I love this blockade. That's the key point.
No, I agree with you, but that's not what the president hears. He hears his negotiators come and tell him, because the Iranians are telling our guys, we're wanting to do X, Y, and Z. And that's refreshing, and it's comforting for our guys to hear all of that. And they're not thinking through, what's the objective in doing that? What are they trying to achieve? Why do they appear, at least verbally, willing to make all these concessions? And yes, we got to maintain healthy skepticism about all of this. And the sooner we put them to the test about it, the better. But I think that a vivid example of the test is right now before our eyes. The IRGC has put their foot down and saying in so many words, you're not going to open up the Straits of Hormuz. We're in charge here. And they're rubbing our nose in it. That's the truth of it. And they're saying the heck with the negotiations that are going on. We're going to stay in power. We're going to survive this. And they think they have, as long as they believe they're in charge of the Straits of Hormuz, they have leverage. And we've obviously exercised some leverage against them. I mean, we shut down the distribution of all of their oil. And yet they came back and pushed back on us in doing this. And I think what they believe, if they stalemate with us like this, we're stopping their distribution. The Iranians are stopping everybody else's distribution of oil. In the end, America will weaken on this because the pressure on them economically and politically is far greater than the pressure that the IRGC and the regime is willing to take. In other words, they're willing to go through cash flow problems and other issues that they'll have. They're willing to go through the problems in their oil production. If the wells don't continue to function properly, then they begin to actually have maintenance issues associated with them. So the whole distribution system has to go. Oil's got to pump, pipelines got to be open, tankers got to be pulling up to the distribution points. And what the Iranians are doing right now, we watched them yesterday. You know, they had 5 tankers pull up to their distribution point at Kharg Island. And people thought, well, they're going to try to run the straits with that. No, they're not. They're just keeping their oil production going. They're using the tankers as a storage site, in the Persian Gulf before it gets to the Straits of Hormuz, because they want to keep that production going. And then when it shuts down and they cannot distribute oil out of their pipeline at Kharg Island, then the oil wells will have to shut down as well. For months. That's going to cause huge problems for them. Yeah. So I think they're in this to stick it out, stalemate the United States, and assume the political and economic pressure on the president will force his hand.
I think they got the wrong guy on that one, sir. I
agree with you. I mean, he's got to be pretty frustrated today dealing with what's happening here, and also looking at his own guys and saying to them, well, who's in charge here, guys? I thought you were telling me we're close to a deal here. We got these guys shutting down the Straits of Hormuz. That doesn't sound like a deal to me. You know he's saying it, and he's got a right to be saying it. What the heck is going on here? You know, who's in charge? Who are we talking to? Is this just empty words we're getting here? Yeah, that conversation, believe me, is likely going on now in the White House, or already has gone on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Knowing him as I do, you cross him in these things, he'll be very angry, and we'll strike back.
Yeah, and he has a right to be, and some of that should actually start with his own people being sucked in a little bit here.
Yeah, huh? Yeah. General, can we take a quick commercial break?
Yeah, sure.
All right, you're wonderful. The great General Jack Keane, folks, you can hear his logic. Nobody can trust the Iranians. Nobody can trust the Iranians. When we come back, maybe we'll talk a little bit about the so-called denuclearization and what that might entail, and shifting the enriched uranium from Iran back to the United States. But we may be further away from all that than we think. Anyway, General Jack Keane will be right with us. I'm Kudlow, folks. Please stick around. Lots more coming. One of the things that was beginning to be discussed yesterday by President Trump and others was the whole issue of removing the enriched uranium from Iran and back into American hands, roughly 1,000 pounds of such enriched uranium. So we're here with great General Jack Keane, the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War and Fox News senior strategic analyst. General Keane, you were talking briefly about this, but this actually, I mean, I know I'm getting ahead of the story because of what's happened today, but looking down the road, this would be a complicated piece of activity, would it not?
What activity are you referring to?
Moving the enriched uranium from Iranian hands into American hands.
Yes, it would be. But some of it we understand. And listen, we don't have perfect intelligence on this, and nor should we. But it's been widely reported that a lot of the enriched uranium is underneath the rubble at one of the sites, and so it's an engineering operation and then a major labor-intensive operation to do all of that, and it would take some time. And there's other suspicions that there's some enriched uranium at another site that they recently developed. Many refer to it as Pickaxe Mountain, which is deeply buried itself. There may be centrifuges there for sure capable of enriching uranium. It's not certain that the highly enriched uranium, some of it is also there. I think our intel guys, CIA and Mossad, have a pretty good feel, for where all of this is, and have some confidence in it. Of course, the Iranians, if there was a way to deceive us about where it all is, they certainly would be at that full time, because that's who they are. But the plan would be for us to go in and do this, and we would bring with us the independent UN body, the IAEA, that deals. They're the investigators and the inspectors, for nuclear power, and they have been in Iran many times, headed up by Grassi, who's in charge of it. So they would accompany us in there, and of course they have huge knowledge about what is going on inside Iran, but Iran has shut them down a few years ago to having any access whatsoever. So that's kind of the plan. It's labor intensive, to be sure. It would take some time, but understand we fully intended to do this under combat operations. So we have a pretty good feel, for what the scale of this operation would mean in terms of securing a site, excavating, and then the labor intensiveness of just getting it all out of there. So our audience to understand, we did this back in 2003 with Mohammed Gaddafi, who was running Libya. And this is during the Bush administration. And we went in there and took all the development of his nuclear enterprise as well as his chemical weapons, and brought the nuclear stuff back to Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where we have an agency that deals with nuclear power. So yes, we know how to do this. We've done it in the past. This is a unique situation here, to be sure, because we're doing this under combat conditions. And obviously there would be a ceasefire, but I mean, we've been fighting a war with them. We were not fighting a war with Gaddafi. He did that after we invaded Iraq, and he thought he would be next. So he voluntarily said, come and get my stuff, because he didn't want to get into a conflict with us. But yeah, that would be a good start in these negotiations, Larry. For them to open us up to do something like that, that would mean that they're really serious. And if we could begin with something like that and actually get all of it out of there and be comfortable we've got all of it out of there. After all, this is their crown jewel, and they don't want to give this up. And if they really did give it up to us completely, and we have confidence that it is completely, that would be a major step. I'm skeptical about all of it, but that would prove that we're on a much better path. It remains to be seen if that would be done.
Well, you've said that should be job one, and I was glad to hear the president talk about it a little bit yesterday. But the point is, we were running out of time, but we're just nowhere near that right now. We're nowhere near that. Anyway, I got another commercial break. General Jack Keane, your skepticism is exactly right. That's all I'll say. And thank you for helping us, as you always do, with your wisdom. Folks, I'm Kudlow. We'll take a break. On the other side, we're going to do some economics work now. Please stick around. Plenty more to do today.